1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, we got a quorum. Okay, let's go ahead and call this Planning Commission meeting to order for Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023. Can we do a roll call, please?
Commissioner Richards? Alderperson Denham?
Here.
Commissioner Romine? Commissioner Davis? Chairperson O'Day?
Here.
Commissioner Martinoski?
Here.
Vice Chairperson Groman?
Here.
Commissioner DeYager?
Here.
Commissioner Gore?
Here.
6 members, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Nikki. All right, first item on the agenda is public comment. This is an opportunity for citizens from the public to come up and speak on behalf of anything that is outside of our regular agenda or public hearing. With that being said, we typically try to limit it to 5 minutes for public comment. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on something outside of the regular or public hearing? No? Okay. Next, we move on to the regular agenda. First item on the regular agenda is approval of the Planning Commission minutes for February 7th, 2023, regular meeting.
Make a motion, we approve them.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. We got a first by Commissioner Groman, a second by Commissioner Denham, Alderwoman Denham. Any comments, any questions by any of the other commissioners? Okay. Roll call vote, please, Nikki.
Alderperson Denham?
Yes.
Chairperson O'Day?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinoski?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Groman?
Yes.
Commissioner DeYager?
Yes.
Commissioner Gore?
Yes.
6 votes yea, 0 nay. Motion carried.
Okay. All right, the next item on the regular agenda is the election of chairperson and vice chairperson for the commission. With that being said, I am going to make a recommendation to the rest of the commission that we postpone this vote until the Board of Aldermen and the mayor have an opportunity to appoint new members of the commission.
Second.
Makes sense.
I agree.
Do we need to take a vote on that, or is that just basically tabled?
I believe we should just vote.
Okay.
I make a motion, we do that.
Okay. Commissioner
Second.
Groman. Alderwoman Denham, second. Do a roll call vote, please.
Alderperson Denham?
Yes.
Chairperson O'Day?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinoski?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Groman?
Yes.
Commissioner DeYager?
Yes.
Commissioner Gore?
Yes.
6 votes yea, 0 nay. Motion carried.
All right, moving right along. All right, now we move on to the public hearing portion of this. First item on the agenda for public hearing is a request for a preliminary subdivision plat for Stillwood East. For this to be in discussion and brought on the table, I would need a first and a second from the commission.
First.
Second.
Okay. First by Commissioner DeYager, second by Commissioner Groman. And now we're going to hand it over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members of the board. Thanks for all the public for coming. I appreciate you all being here. As you had mentioned, that we do have an opportunity to speak about a plat that was submitted with regards to the Steelwood East. This is along just outside of the Branson Hills Expressway at 100 Lake Hills Drive, and the applicant on behalf of Great River Engineering is Todd Chandler, who's presenting for KC Hospitality of Branson Incorporated. This particular parcel and surrounding area is located within a high-density residential district within the zoning ordinance and on the zoning map. And based on the applicant's request, we were looking at approval for this particular preliminary plat. And as you can see, based on the location map, this isn't terribly far from US 65, but as you can see, where the blue arrow is on the map, it's just located off of the Branson Hills Expressway between the shopping area and the rest of the development between the golf course within the purple box. And as we zoom in a little bit closer, the particular parcel we're looking at is sort of a triangular shaped property that abuts up against the parkway. And this Lake Hills Drive property, certainly as we're looking at this today, May the 2nd, notice was made within 185 feet of this particular property. And as you can see, based on the location map, 185 feet would pick up some vacant areas surrounding it, but there are certainly some properties within this area that would be affected in that particular area. And just to be clear, particularly to members of the public that wouldn't be particularly familiar with this, because we're looking at preliminary approval on a plat, there are a variety of things that we're looking at. Not necessarily going to go through every single one of these items, but to be clear, there are several items with regards to final utilities and other substantial improvements that would be looked at once we would go to a final plat. So that would not be included in this particular submission. So just please, everyone, keep that in mind as we look at this. So with that said, one thing we do want to look at, which is one of the items we do look at when we're looking at a plan, is the utilities in the surrounding area. And as you can see, predominantly, you can see in the green lines that are located surrounding the particular property are all the sanitary sewer areas within, sanitary sewer utility within the general vicinity of this particular property. Not only that, but you can see the red pentagon-shaped items are the water hydrants within this particular area, as well as the triangular areas that indicates all the water system valves. So suffice it to say, there are public utilities available in this particular vicinity. The current zoning, as I mentioned earlier, would be high-density residential. And as you can see, the majority of the properties, particularly the majority of the western portion of this property, as well as the entirety of the southern portion of this property, is in the high-density residential area as well. So not only is it currently in HDR, it's obviously proposed to also be in HDR, high-density residential. Coincidentally, if you look at the 2030 plan for the community, this is actually considered a vacant land use. So that's why you're seeing this show up as gray. But all, again, the properties to the south mainly are considered medium density residential. So now we get into the plan itself. As you can see, there aren't a lot of the proposed utilities and things like that shown to the site, just because that isn't at the stage where this particular plan is at. However, as you can see, this is going to be primarily accessed via Lakeside Drive. But as you can see, there are no utilities, there is no development on this particular site as it is proposed now. One thing you will see with the site is that the plan was originally submitted, there are significant topographic lines showing that there are some steep slopes on this particular property. But as you can see, there's already been some site work that allows the proposed drive to go in at a reasonable slope. So that will have to be shown, once we get to a final submission. But the good thing is there's plenty of site distance once a driveway would be established at the location they're proposing to get onto the main ingress and egress out of this particular site. So then moving on to the next proposed area, as you can see, this actually builds off of the balance of some development that's already occurring to the site just to the west. And if I can actually turn around, if you forgive me, if everybody, turn my back to everybody, I apologize. So principal access will be right here, and then everyone will be able to access via this particular proposed access drive. Yeah, sorry about that. I was afraid that was going to happen. So again, this is where the proposed access main point is going to be onto Lake Hills Drive, which then will ultimately go to the Branson Hills Parkway. But the balance of the property will be accessed via this main access drive as it is being shown on this particular plat. sorry that you weren't able to hear me earlier. But again, to be clear, one thing I do want to point out, because it was shown, and we had discussed this with the surveyor responsible for this particular plan, that there is this kind of weird, excuse my lack of technical term, but there's a triangular shaped property just to the north of this property, which actually is a separately deeded property that, for whatever reason, the Taney County parcel mapping does not match what we're showing on this particular property. So that is one thing that the surveyor has verified, that this is a separate property. You might be familiar with that property because that is where a detention pond currently sits, just so there's no confusion of why that's being shown this way. But with that said, if we're looking at the view from the north, as I had mentioned earlier, there's a variety of different condos just to the north of this particular, or excuse me, this would be the south. This is facing from the north. So this would be looking towards the main part of the city. And we'll look at all four views. So this is facing from the east towards the west. This would be the view that you'd be north, would be north, straight to the top of this particular viewpoint on this one. One thing you will see is that there was quite a lot of vegetation on this particular property. There's already been some land disturbance permits that have gone through there and tried to preserve a lot of the trees on the site. So it was good to see that move forward that way. But as you can see, this view from the east, it gets to show the main access. And I'll try it again to show you. Hopefully you can hear me. The main access essentially would be right here. So all the access then will funnel down through here and then onto the Branson Hills Parkway. And again, we're looking at the existing conditions being a vacant lot. And as I had mentioned earlier, actually I did not mention this, but it is worth noting that on the community plan for 2030, this actually shows this is a low-density residential area. So while this was rezoned as a high-density residential area, the current zoning allows for a slightly higher density than would be shown within the 2030 plan. And there would be an added amenity of choice for the community and visitors. So you're seeing it's kind of a zoomed out view of where this sits, but it's obviously within the red circle you're seeing on the screen, where you can see the balance of Branson Hills in the immediate vicinity of this particular subject parcel. But being that there is going to be some additional things that will need to be shown once this goes to final plat, we're not seeing any real issues that would cause any reason to not recommend a approval for this particular plat. And again, just to be clear, there will be significant additional work that will need to occur once it would go to final, seeing final utilities and connections and things like that. And I believe, and the applicants are here, so forgive me for saying this, but I believe the future intent for this project is condos. So, so additional work will be shown in the future, but this is just a simple subdivision plat at this time. So we do, as a staff, recommend approval for this particular property or submission.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. See any of the commissioners have any questions for Mark?
There's going to be 9 units, and you're estimating roughly 3 people per unit, so there'll be a total of 27 people, relatively speaking, occupying that area? Or can it get higher? What's the most they could have in that area?
So high-density residential allows, I think, 24 units per acre. So this property is much larger, obviously, than an acre. So this high-density residential zoning allows for quite a bit more density than is there. which is actually probably of a good thing, as I mentioned on the preliminary plat that shows quite a bit of steep slope, particularly when it abuts up against the Branson Hills Parkway. It allows a little bit of space, particularly to the rear where the units potentially are going to be going. So it's actually a good thing that it's not going to be that high of density, but you certainly raise a very good point. How many units are proposed versus how many would be allowed. But again, this definitely fits far underneath of what is allowable in this particular district. Just as long as it does not exceed that number, we are fine.
So it's way below it now.
It is.
But could they adjust it as it goes on?
Well, they would have to go through, so with this process, they would have to submit, a new plan to allow for that. But as you can see, there is an opportunity. I think the way they're showing the roadways, there potentially could be additional development, but at this time, we are not seeing that being proposed that way, but hypothetically, there could be more units. But certainly, we'll know more once the actual roads are being proposed, where the utility connections are going to be and where the stormwater retention is going to be. My thought and my professional opinion would be there's quite a bit of portion of this property that you would not want to develop just because of the slopes and needing to be able to have some stormwater retention. But regardless, yes, the way it's laid out, there could potentially be more units, but certainly it would still need to fall underneath that 24 units per acre.
If we approve it now, what would be the next step? This preliminary plat, this is just the very beginning. They're going to come back, they'll come back with a final plat, right?
Yes, sir.
Alderwoman Dunn.
Okay, just to be clear for the audience, hypothetically, at 5.5 acres, there could be maximum, per our code, 132 dwelling units
Yes. thank you.
total. So just to be clear, so that the audience knows that, although if the whole area is not developable, then obviously not, but just so that nobody's misled, and if they do have a different plan that comes in, it would not need to come through planning and zoning because it's already allowed dwelling units per acre.
Yes.
So I just wanted to provide clarity on that.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners have any questions? Okay. Mr. Chandler, you want to come up and tell us a little bit about your project? You want to sign in as well, please?
Yes, I'm Todd Chandler with Great River Engineering, 186 South Payne Stewart Drive, Suite 151, Bransonville, and I'll sign in as well. Yeah, what we're doing here tonight is simply just trying to get approval on the preliminary plat. The ultimate development is going to be a condo development. In order for it to be condo platted, it has to be a platted lot, and this lot was never platted as part of Branson Hills. So we're just stepping through the city process of going through the preliminary plat. We'll be back next month with the final plat, and then that will allow us to then submit a condo plat, which will be submitted via citizen serve. As Mark said, there's utilities on site. It's served water by Public Water Supply District 3. There's also sewer on the property. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. The topography is pretty challenging. But that's pretty much the norm in Branson, so every project I work on, if it wasn't flat, I wouldn't know how to design it, so. But I've done a lot of work in the area, so we're excited about this project. It's another great project for Branson. It'll give our guests and residents another opportunity to have a nice place to live in a developing area. So, any questions for me?
I've got, when you put the condos in, we go from 27 people to how many people is it going to stay pretty close to that? I'm just curious.
We're still working out the nuances with the design of the condo development. Tonight, we're just here for the preliminary plat, so there'll be more information in future. But I don't want to set the developer up with saying this is going to be one way or the other. I will say we're not going for rezoning. It's going to remain HDR. We don't need any zoning changes to anything else. So we'll be limited by the HDR zoning requirements, which are 24 lots or 24 units per acre.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Mr. Chandler? Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this topic? Okay. Mr. Chandler's done. We'll have you come on up here. We'll need you to sign in like Mr. Chandler's doing, and then we'll need you to state your name and your address into the microphone as well, please.
Thank you.
I tell you my name, I've never done this.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll state your name and your address into the microphone, and then there should be a little sign-in sheet there for you to put that down as well, please.
Richard Weatherwood, 143 Rudavilla Circle. We live in, let's see, the condo association that's right down here. And from what I understand, yeah, this is the villas at Branson Hills, right here. The road nobody's mentioned, from what I understand, that's a private road, private paved road. And we would like to know, are we going to have some help maintaining it? It needs paved right now. They've carried in the dirt and rock with large trucks through all this summer, and it needs work. That's a question. We wonder, can we get some help either from them in maintaining it and snow removal and things like that? If they go back to that other slide, not that one. One more. That one. You can see it's not just those 12 units, but there's other units up there that are going to be using that road. Either that, I don't know the process. Can the city even take over a road? Just a question.
Those are probably questions that we'll have to work through
Yeah.
with planning.
I
and
don't know if
zoning.
this is the time or what, so these are just some questions.
No, they're great questions, and they're definitely questions that need to be brought up and questions that you guys need to get answers on for sure. I believe planning and zoning and engineering would be the ones that we would need to probably bring into the fold on this as well, to get some more directive from them. If it's a private road, who owns that road?
Rudavilla Association.
Okay.
So, yeah, we own it.
Okay.
Okay.
I believe we just need to work through with utilities engineer and planning department to figure out what the next best step is on that.
We didn't know if this was the time, but better to be too early than too late.
Absolutely agree with you. I completely agree.
Sign in?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public who would like to speak on this? Please. Yeah, I'm sorry.
My name is Cheryl Kartsanakis, and I live at 160 Rue de Villas Circle. And we're wondering the purpose of these condos that are to be built. Are they to be overnight rentals? Are they to be one-story, two-story? What type are they? Since we're residents there, and we moved in 4 months ago, and we moved into the very first one in Rudavilla Circle 4 days ago. So we're right on that street that we're wondering about. So,
Okay. Similar to the previous question, I think it's a little preliminary for us to be able to answer that. Based on what Mr. Chandler shared with us earlier, they really haven't defined exactly what their project is. All this is a preliminary plat approval. From this point, they'll come in, if approved, it'll go to a permanent plat, which is what Mark was saying in regards to how are they going to do the utilities, how are they going to do the connections, what the driveway is going to look like, everything associated with that type of a project. And then they'll have to submit the condominium plat. At that time, that's when us as a commission, as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission, will know what exactly they're going to develop on that property. Right now, we, unfortunately, based on my understanding from Mr. Chandler, we just don't know.
Mr. Chandler does not know? Okay. And
Alderwoman Dim, go ahead.
Ask a question of you, Ms. Katsanakis. Are you asking, excuse me, if nightly rentals are allowed in high-density residential zoning? Is that what you're asking?
yes, in
Okay.
essence, yes.
Yes, it's an allowed use
It
in
is.
high-density residential. Yes, I just got the nods. That is a use that is allowed in high-density zoning, so it would be allowed if that is what they wanted to do.
Okay, and I signed this, right?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak on this topic? No? Okay, do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments that they would like to?
I've got one more for Mark.
Mark?
Yeah,
Yes, please.
Julie, Mark. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure, this is preliminary.
Yes, sir.
They'll have to come back with full details, and again, the public will get a chance to comment on it before anything final is done.
Yes, that is certainly correct. And rest assured, we know about the road access issue, and that's something we've already discussed with staff. Engineering is certainly aware of that. We have a plan on how we're going to address that potentially going forward. But certainly, that is a principal thing. There are a lot of things that we need to look at. So that is something we will address once it would go to final. But again, because there are some of those things that are somewhat unknown yet, it's kind of unfair to the applicant to be able to address some of those issues at the preliminary stage. So that's why some of those questions can't be answered at this time. I do understand it's a little bit frustrating for the members of the public, but it does provide opportunities. And assuming, and I don't want to speak unnecessarily on behalf of the Planning Commission, if they would choose to do something different, but our intent would be very soon, maybe as early as next month, the final plan might be able to be submitted. It could be submitted as early as that so that it could be discussed at that point. But certainly, I'm glad you were asking for clarification on that, because there are a lot of things that we certainly will review in detail before we would recommend any kind of approval.
What I'm voting on now is to give them a chance to submit the
Yes,
final
sir.
plat.
Yes, sir.
With the understanding that these folks are gonna get another chance to come in
Yes, sir.
and nothing final will be done.
And
Is there any advice, and I know it's not part of our job, is there any advice we can give them so that they can go and check with somebody in the city and and get things going so there's no surprises at the end. I know that's not really our jurisdiction, roads, but they're here, and I know if I were them, I sure appreciate some guidance. Where could I go?
Yeah, and even if, you know, anybody, members of the public, I mean, certainly our doors are always open if anybody have any questions, but one thing that maybe, if you can't make it to another future planning commission hearing, you can present comment, and then you could potentially have a proxy to present, you know, comment in the future if that would be something you wouldn't want to come to another meeting. But there are many opportunities to provide those comments, and certainly I'd be able to answer those questions in person at the office. We are open 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday, so we will certainly have staff on available to speak about these issues. Not only this, but really any planning or zoning related item.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gore?
Mark, I just want to confirm, this is a whole new subdivision, completely separate from the existing still?
Yes, correct.
So it will have a brand-new set of CC&Rs?
Yes. So, well, to be clear, you know, like, for example, when it goes to the preliminary plan, it doesn't actually even get recorded. So it's just laying out the opportunity so that they have the right to be able to submit a future subdivision plan. So once it would go to the next stage, again, this just opens up the gate to be able to submit those plans, and then all the rest of the details would be submitted at that time. And then should that potentially get approved at that stage, it would go to Board of Aldermen, and then they will be able to approve the plan, then it will be able to get recorded, and then they'll be able to sell or go to condo plat that we had discussed earlier. So that's what we assume is going to be the process moving forward, and I know that Todd and the rest of the team there at Great River and the applicant know that process very well, so we're confident that they're going to be able to do the things they need to do.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, could you please come up to the microphone now? Same routine, though. We have to have you state your name, address, all that. kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
my name is Dean Sitton. I'm from 119 Rudavilla Circle. And I noticed you, sir, was shaking your head no when we was discussing who owns Lake Hill Drive. We was of the understanding that Mr. Ruda does, and it becomes our responsibility when things are settled up there. And you're chuckling now, so would you please tell us who owns this and who's going to help us to pave that street and take care of that street, given snow removal, patching as it needs repairing, maintenance? That's what we're concerned about too. It's going to be a big expense. If we can get help, we want it.
Mr. Chairman, point of order, this isn't the time and place for that kind of
Agreed.
discussion, and he shouldn't be put
Okay.
in a spot like that.
Agreed.
It's got nothing to do with our business this evening.
Agreed. This will have to be something that we talk about
sorry,
outside. Sorry.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. He was shaking his head no, and I'm thinking, I don't agree with what I've heard.
Understood.
So,
Understood.
thank you very much, though.
All right, any other questions from any of the commissioners? Unfortunately, it will have to be at the mic. That's something that I can't even answer. It's all dependent upon, and her question was, when can she ask these type of questions? There's going to be additional opportunities with the final plat. When it comes back, there's going to be opportunities with the Board of Aldermen, because it's going to have to go through 2 readings at the Board of Aldermen as well, if approved by Planning and Zoning. So Planning and Zoning Commission just goes through the plat process, then the condominium plat will actually probably go through Planning and Zoning directly and not even through the Planning Commission if everything is the way it's supposed to be. So you've got your preliminary plat now, your final plat that will be potentially next month, that we would put through Planning and Zoning Commission. From that point, it would go on to the Board of Aldermen for a first reading and a second reading. So there's going to be 3 additional opportunities for comment that I'm aware of, potentially even more.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to ask, on the card that goes out that these property owners received, stating tonight's date, does it have the Board of Aldermen date on it as well? So they know what date that they can come in? Because if, when it goes to Board of Aldermen, you will not be notified in the mail like you were with this. So maybe to provide them with that information of what date it's scheduled for Board of Aldermen.
Hi, Jennifer.
Chairman, yeah, Jennifer Thompson, Planning Department. So it will get notified for Board of Aldermen, just like it did for Planning Commission, yeah, for
Okay,
preliminary and final.
Great,
Yes.
great, okay. All right, any other questions? All right, we already have a first and a second, so let's do a roll call vote, please.
Alderperson Dedham? Yes. Chairperson O'Day?
Yes?
Commissioner Martinaski?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Groman?
Yes.
Commissioner Dieger?
Yes.
Commissioner Gore?
Yes.
6 votes yea, 0 nay. Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. Last item on tonight's agenda are reports. Do any of the commissioner have any reports they would like to submit for this evening? Hearing none, seeing none, I would take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Dieger, second by Commissioner Groman. We do a roll call vote, please.
Alderperson Denham? Yes. Chairperson O'Day?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinaski?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Groman?
Yes.
Commissioner Dieger?
Yes.
Commissioner Gore?
Yes.
6 votes yea, 0 nay. Motion carried and meeting adjourned at 6:37 PM.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming out.